conference on international food aid is set to begin Monday in Kansas City. This as a top UN official is predicting a new era of hunger. Recently, over 30 countries have been hit with riots or violent protests, all because of the rising cost of food. Michelle Miller has more.
In Haiti this week, riot police turned their guns on the nation's hungry. Looting and violence that claim the life of a UN peacekeeper capped 3 days of unrest by those who can no longer afford to eat. A food crisis with deadly consequences is spreading across the globe. The hardest hit so far are those living in the third world, on the razor's edge of poverty in places like Egypt, Bangladesh, and Zimbabwe.
While many are worrying about filling their gas tanks, many others around the world are struggling to fill their stomachs.
What we are seeing is a perfect storm.
The World Food Program blames soaring food prices on a convergence of rising energy costs, natural disasters linked to climate change, and competition for grain used to make biofuels like ethanol. Worldwide, food prices have risen 40% since mid-2007, and close to 40 countries are facing food emergencies. With 1 billion people living on less than $1 a day, the absolute minimum for survival, the crisis is beginning to threaten political stability.
A hungry man is an angry man, and I think that's what all the governments are grappling with.
The UN reports unrest in 33 countries, 20 of which have imposed some sort of food price controls. After Haiti's president cut the price of rice by 15% today, its Senate dismissed the country's prime minister.
In many developing countries, the poor spend up to 75% of their income on food. When prices of basic foods rise, it hits hard.
In some first world countries, too. At this food bank in New York City, caseworkers say shrinking supplies can't keep pace with a client base that's doubled in 2 years. The World Food Program says it's facing a $500 million shortfall in funding this year, and the problem is still growing. Michelle Miller, CBS News, New York.
The American people and other people of other nations, up on their hind legs, acting like free people rather than battered slaves. Tell them their food for tomorrow morning is not there. That activates popular resistance more than anything else. We are now in such a situation. For many parts of the world, the lack of food is an immediate reality. There is a growing explosion throughout much of the world over this food shortage issue. The rate of food shortage is increasing because the stocking from various food stores, annual stores, has been already delivered, and there's not enough. So as the fact of the empty warehouses and equivalent forms of supplies, as these things go down without food, the food crisis is going to accelerate. And you're going to have not only other parts of the world, but also American citizens who are now faced with the threat of death.
Everyday common folk who just want to be secure when facing an uncertain future. It's a form of insurance we hope we never have to use, but we're glad we have it when we need it. You have everything to gain by prepping, and everything to lose if you don't.
They have had terrible problems with water. Poor people cannot get clean water in the city.
That's problematic because I know for a fact that there are over 1,500 municipalities here in America that are doing the exact same thing. They're privatizing their water.
Ooh, that's a lot. But the New York State Health Department stepped in with the USGS and tested it and found heart medicine, estrogen, anticonvulsants, mood stabilizers, tranquilizers, and much, much more.
In for Tom Green this morning, and it is a crazy headline story. A lot of folks concerned about this one. Denver is among 24 major metropolitan areas where prescription drugs have been found in the drinking water. According to an Associated Press study, antibiotics, mood stabilizers, sex hormones, and over-the-counter pain medications are just some of the pharmaceuticals found in the drinking water of at least 41 million Americans.
Fluoride is also used as a preservative and also lurks in many products we consume. But apart from toothpaste, it's not listed on labels.
So it is coming into one's body through many sources, and you are not aware of it.
The fluoride.
Well, over 90%, including Dasani, Aquafina, Ice Mountain, and the rest of them, that we believe is safe, guess what? They come from tap supplies. If you don't believe me, do your own research, look at the side of the bottle. If they're tapping the water to put it into the bottle, guess what? It still has the pharmaceutical drugs in it. These drugs are very bad for your brain, your child's brain. Your neuron pathways are very complex, but when you're constantly getting minute traces of pharmaceutical drugs, there is no telling the long-term side effects.
You gotta check this out. Remember, Bolivia has built one of the biggest aquifers in the world. They're supplying, this is a desert country. This country, if we wouldn't attacked, this is all online right now. This is basically mostly done. This is a map of the aquifers. What happened is the Libyans were looking for oil in the Sahara, and they found this huge deposit of water underneath the ground.
So what's business like these days?
Right now, our wait list is around between 1 to 2 years, depending which rig and what size of well. My phone rings constantly, you know, farmers, hey, I lost another well, went dry. I don't like to hear stuff like that. I don't like to see a farmer losing their crops. If they want to stay in business and farm, they have to drill a well.
But as more wells are drilled, California's water is being depleted by nearly 4 trillion gallons per year. That's more than 1 billion gallons every single day. At that rate of consumption, of the crisis originate 2,000 miles away in the Amazon rainforest.
The water that irrigates 70% of South America comes from the Amazon. Otherwise, this area would be a desert. If you deforest it, you lose rainfall.
So the trees are actually fighting
the drought.
Fighting the drought.
Thank you. It's an honor to be in the room with this many people who give a damn. Again, my name is Dane Wigington again with the website geoengineeringwatch.org, and the purpose of our site is to give credible, verifiable data to the public and to activists so that we might wake others up as well. It's our responsibility to wake them up because they're not waking up on their own. Clearly, we know that at this point. I never wanted this job. I'm not politically oriented. I'm not an activist. But quite simply, with my background with Bechtel Power in the renewable energy industry, my home was on the cover of the world's largest renewable energy magazine. When I moved to the Pacific Northwest thinking I would find clean air, and seeing these trails above that were blocking, in some cases, 60, 70, 80% of my solar uptake, clearly something was going on. When research led me to this subject, I began testing water, did not want to find these toxic heavy metals, but I did, in ever-increasing amounts. I'm in this fight because my children have no future if we don't stop this. And even if we stop this, we faced immense challenges.
Got to it.
and he isn't shy about the scheme.
I know what people say that, well, water's a lot like air. Do you charge for air? Of course not. You shouldn't charge for water. Well, okay, watch what happens. You won't have any water.
All the documents, the Iron Mountain document, even the NASA war document, talks about there are too many people using too much stuff, and the Earth cannot support this. And they've come up with the fear-based, scientific, fraudulent information that people are now accepting. They're rewriting history and they're rewriting science with the idea that people are using too much resources. We have to reduce CO2 and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and that is flying through every city across the world right now. It's written into all local government documents, and cities now are, well, California, for example, with the CARB initiative, where we have to actually pay for the air we breathe, and we're taxed for the air. It's like the fiat money. We've accepted false-backed money, which they tell us in the Iron document.
Neither has food nor money to feed its citizens. The horrifying food crisis in China is quite an embarrassment for the government of the second largest economy in the world, and Myanmar is all set to expose China's desperation for rice.
The edge is also devastating, but what we have now is a situation where food prices are really just toppling people into straightforward hunger and famine. I mean, in Haiti, people are eating mud cakes in order to keep hunger pangs at bay. Things are pretty dire.
Various nations and among nations, all this world is going to go to hell because the crisis won't quit. The people will die of hunger. They will die in increasing numbers. They will kill for food. The structure of society will be destroyed in the fight over food, which is not there. Therefore, either we win in this fight against this evil, or there won't be anything to fight for.
A multi-billionaire. The fellow was married to Jane Hanoi Fonda.
That's correct. He very happily indicated that he gave $1 billion to the United Nations. And the United Nations, of course, has a depopulation plan. And he said that the consequence of food shortages and water shortages worldwide were then going to lead into so much chaos that people would start cannibalizing one another, and that this was going to be soon, he feels.
Is coming. It's going to come like a tsunami. It's going to hit us like a ton of bricks. There's a lot of people. You've woken up a lot of people, Alex, and thank you for that. But there are a lot of people who just have no clue, no idea.